You might think this is a story about Galileo. It is, but not in the way people usually tell it. Because this isn't really about the sky, or planets, or science. It's about something much quieter. A room. Most people don't notice rooms. They notice facts, arguments, evidence, decide what happens to all of them. A room has memory. It has hierarchy. It has invisible rules. Who is allowed to speak? Who is expected to agree? Galileo looked up, and for a moment, everything became simple. Clarity is a strange thing. It doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't convince you. It just replaces confusion. You felt it before. That quiet moment when something finally makes sense. And right after that moment, another thought appears. I just need to explain it. That's where most problems begin. Because discovering truth and placing it inside a room are two very different things. Galileo didn't walk into an empty space. He walked into a room that was already full of belief, full of authority. So when truth entered that room, it didn't feel like discovery. It felt like correction. And correction is rarely welcomed. This is where people misunderstand power. Power does not always hate truth, not immediately. At first, it listens. Then it measures. What does this change? Who becomes smaller? If this is true, because the moment truth begins to rearrange people, it stops being information. It becomes risk. Socrates understood this. He didn't bring proof. He brought questions. Simple ones. Careful ones. The kind that don't attack, but slowly remove certainty. At first, people answered him. Then they hesitated. They started hearing their own contradictions. And when that happens, a room begins to tighten. Not because someone is shouting, but because something is being exposed. Quietly, Socrates was not punished for being loud. He was punished for being correct in the wrong place. The same pattern appears again. Different time, different room. Moses standing before Pharaoh. Pharaoh wasn't just a ruler, he was a system, a story, a structure that told people who should command and who should obey. So when truth appeared, the question was never just, is this message true? The real question was, what happens if people believe it? Because truth that weakens control is never treated as neutral. You see this again in courts, in institutions, in history, and if you're paying attention, you see it in your own life, a conversation, a meeting, a family table. You say something that is correct, not aggressive, not emotional, just true. And suddenly, something shifts. The tone changes. The air becomes tighter in being right. Doesn't feel like winning, so you soften your words, delay your point. Sometimes you stay silent. Not because you're wrong, but because you've started to understand something. Truth is not enough. A room does not reject truth because it is false. It rejects what truth forces it to rearrange. Status, ego, reputation, control, comfort. And once you see that, you stop asking only what is true. You start asking something harder. What does this truth touch? Because that is what the room is really protecting. This is where wisdom begins, not in silence and not in bluntness, but in understanding placement, timing, form, delivery. Because truth thrown carelessly can disappear, but truth placed carefully can change everything. That's why some truths are spoken directly. Some are told as stories, some are asked as questions, and some are left in silence until the room is ready to hear itself. So no, this was never just a story about Galileo. It's about every room you walk into, every moment you see something clearly, and every decision about what you do next, because being right is only the beginning. Truth does not win because it is correct. It wins when it is carried with enough wisdom to survive the room.
Thank you for watching. New investigation every 2 days. Subscribe to The Red.